What up, UCF Nation? Kind of want to do a video on the Dillon Gabriel transfer news. I never got to do it. There was a ton of news that happened like right after it. Obviously, the horrible and unfortunate Otis Anderson news, the All American conference team, and then of course the UCF UF Bowl news. But I've been wanting to do a video about the news that Dillon Gabriel has decided to enter the transfer portal. Obviously, this is major news. Easily the biggest transfer that's departed from UCF ever since the portal hit, of course, besides Mackenzie Milton. But I think we all anticipated that due to the injury and due to the fact that Dillon Gabriel had taken over as the team's quarterback. But DG comes as way more of a surprise than Mackenzie. And it's been a very divisive topic for UCF fans. Some people are wishing him well. Other people are very pissed that he's leaving. It's caused a lot of debate about where he stands as far as his legacy at UCF and just kind of the anger that he's ditching the team right now. But I want to give my thoughts on it. I kind of understand both sides. First of all, him leaving appears to be for a multitude of reasons. Most notably is I don't think he feels that he jives with Gus Malzahn's offense. It's nowhere near like Josh Heupel's pass-happy offense, right, where he can rack up a ton of stats, a ton of yards. There's a lot more balance. There's a lot more rushing, power running, like we saw with Isaiah Bowser this year. So it doesn't allow him, in his mind, to, I think, have as good of a season, at least statistically. So he maybe didn't jive there with Malzahn's offense. And I don't know, maybe he didn't jive with Malzahn as his head coach. I don't know that to be true, but the offense for sure. But what's interesting about that is that in the 3 games that Gabriel played, UCF was actually top 10 in the country offensively. I know it was only 3 games, but they were scoring over 30. Gabriel was getting close to 300 passing yards, so I'm not sure what he didn't like about it. I think Coach Malzahn did every effort to, build the offense around Dillon Gabriel's strengths. So, but, maybe he saw the writing on the wall that once he went down, they changed the offense. I don't know. He also apparently feels that, obviously NIL is very important to Dillon Gabriel. He has his business, DG, the brand, where he sells clothes and socks, and he's partnered up with several companies. Clearly, it's something that he wants to take advantage of, which, of course, it's understandable. Who knows if he'll have a pro career? This may be a window where he can make a lot of money. It does seem that he feels that if he goes to a bigger school, and when I say bigger school, I just mean, an SEC school or something like that, where they have a longer history of football and maybe have a bigger fan base and bigger alumni and bigger donors. He feels that he can, enhance his NIL marketability. And that's hard to deny because you haven't really seen any UCF players get some big deals. In Orlando, as a city, contrary to what I thought when NIL was first announced, has not really been taking advantage of it. You don't really see businesses partnering up with UCF players like they could be. Whereas you see SEC quarterbacks getting cars, getting massive deals. I mean, look at Derek King, had a massive deal with Miami before he really even did much with the Hurricanes. So it does seem that other schools are offering better opportunities when it comes to NIL, and Dillon Gabriel wants to take advantage of that. He also feels that he can enhance his draft status, which I think goes side by side with the stats. If he feels he's in an offense, it's better for him. He'll put up bigger stats. He'll get more notoriety. He'll get more exposure, and he will enhance his ability to get drafted. Because over the first 2 years at UCF, obviously people thought he could go pro, but there wasn't a ton of NFL talk. He wasn't predicted to be drafted early or anything like that. So those seem to be the primary reasons why Dillon Gabriel has entered the portal. And it seems like he had made this decision, somewhat early into his injury. Apparently, according to Our Time, that show on ESPN, he was medically cleared to return for Connecticut and chose not to. He could have played in Connecticut, South Florida, and of course this upcoming bowl game. You could definitely make a case that there wasn't a huge reason to return for 2 games that didn't really impact UCF's season. And risk further injury. If he was going to come back to UCF next year and, make a run at the conference title, yeah, okay, I could see, not wanting to come back. But clearly he wasn't going to come back, at all. And He did seem to. I think the main reason why UCF fans are upset isn't the fact that he is transferring. It's the fact of how he went about it. From the moment he went down to up to now, I mean, there was very little encouragement to Mikey Keene. You didn't see him mentoring Mikey Keene. There was zero post about UCF after a win or a tough loss. Everything he was doing was just promoting his products, promoting DG, the brand. He just seemed very disengaged from the team and just the program as a whole. And I think that's a big problem that UCF Nation has with it. Then, even as recently as a week before he transferred, he was still promoting his UCF socks and trying to get people to buy them and, trying to sell. And then he announces he's transferring. So I think UCF fans feel a little slighted and just feel the way he went about it wasn't the best way. And I don't think, when a player of his stature, someone that was clearly the best player on the team, or at least the best player on offense for a number of years now, when you leave, when you transfer, there's going to be a little bit of heartbreak. When you see a middle tier or a bottom tier player transfer, it's always wish them the best. No one really cares as much. When a big time player like this transfers, there's always going to be some hurt. And I don't think there's ever an ideal, perfect way to transfer. I mean, look at how many people have left in pro sports over the years and been scrutinized, like when LeBron left the Cavs. And there's no perfect way. Someone's going to scrutinize every single way. He could have done a great video. He could have done anything. I think there still would have been scrutiny, but he probably went about it a lot worse than he could have. He could have done a lot better. He could have made a nice video where he spoke about it, or just been more engaged. You're the team captain throughout the year. Even if you knew you're transferring, care for the rest of the year for your teammates, for your brothers that are on the left to the right for you, for the team that gave you a chance in college football, that you've had some good success with on the field. I think he could have shown a little bit more care and just I think a better attitude during this process of his injury. To me, what's an interesting question is, if he never got injured, what was his plan? Was he going to stay at UCF? If you don't like Gus Malzahn's offense, then were you planning on leaving anyways? I wonder. It's interesting how the injury happened and then all this unfolded. But I wonder, if he never got injured, would he be staying at UCF? So that's something that's always I'm gonna wonder. But I tend to agree with the fans that think he didn't go about it the best way. I think he could have come back next year, and with Cincy probably going to be a little bit on the decline with all the players they've graduated and going pro, and UCF getting a nice recruiting class in and probably getting some transfers and building some momentum. Dillon Gabriel as a senior quarterback could have maybe led us to our first conference title since 2018, and I think he could have had a great year and finished out his career at UCF well. But somewhere the relationship soured, and I think that obviously is with the coaching staff. That would be the main reason that you'd likely transfer. Clearly, there was some sort of animosity there where he felt he didn't want to play for this coaching staff anymore. Obviously, he was someone that was recruited by Josh Heupel. This wasn't his coaching staff. He apparently had a very, very close relationship with Jeff Lebby, who, was our quarterback coach when Heupel was here, now is the OC at Ole Miss. So that's why you are seeing those rumors that Dillon Gabriel may end up at Ole Miss if Lebby is still there. So clearly there was some disconnect with this coaching staff. It's a shame though that he didn't end his career at UCF. I'm pretty upset about it. I wish he could have stayed his senior year and had a good year. And the main reason is because of the legacy. So we talk about, this is the big debate. So, Dillon finishes 2 years plus 3 games here. Statistically, he's inarguably one of the best UCF quarterbacks in stats and everything. But with over 8,000 yards and 70 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, he ranks number 5 in UCF all time in both categories, in passing TDs and passing yards. Statistically, he is one of the best UCF quarterbacks of all time. And I think any way you look at it, he is one of the better UCF quarterbacks. But legacy wise, you have to say he did not win any big games. He never made it to a conference title game. He never made it to a New Year's Six bowl. And all of the kind of our biggest games that he was a part of, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati for 2 years in a row, he didn't win. He didn't win a game against Cincinnati. He never made it to even, a conference championship, let alone win one, and never made it to a big New Year's Six game like some of the past legacy UCF quarterbacks like Blake Bortles and Mackenzie Milton, of course. Is that all his fault? Absolutely not. There's obviously, some of that was during a little bit of a rebuild. Some of that could have been Heupel's fault, some of the players around him. But 2019, I think, he had plenty of good players still around him, especially in offense, where, they should have been able to make the conference championship, but, lost key games that they shouldn't have lost, like against Tulsa. So his legacy will be, statistically amazing, but he never won a big game at UCF. But in my mind, I think just the play on the field and his beautiful long ball and his ability to make plays, I still think I would put him in a top 5, 6 all-time QBs. It's not like UCF has been a quarterback factory, so I put him somewhere in there, but obviously he's way behind someone like a McKenzie or a Blake Bortles. And I think if he would have finished here, he could have been drafted. Look, just because you don't go to Alabama doesn't mean you're not getting drafted. UCF has proven year after year that we get players drafted. We had 5 players drafted alone in last year, or 6 players, excuse me, a UCF record. So that's kind of a BS excuse. And quarterbacks, Blake Bortles has been drafted, Dante Culpepper's been drafted. So we could put quarterbacks in the NFL. But I understand his reasoning overall for wanting to leave. It's a shame though now because we've had three of our past 4 starting quarterbacks have transferred. Mackenzie Milton, obviously Darryl Mack Jr., now DG, and all for various reasons, all for reasons that make sense, that are justified. But it is a shame that none of them got to finish in a UCF uniform. So now we look to the future, and maybe it is better for both sides. DG probably would only had 1 more year left. Probably wouldn't have been out at UCF as we enter the Big 12 in 2023. So now we either build with Mikey Keene, hope he improves in the offseason, gets better, or a guy like Thomas Castellanos who's coming in this next recruiting class. We build with the future, the young guy. Maybe these guys, either Mikey improves and now he's going into his second year as a starter, and then we enter the Big 12 and he's really good as an upperclassman, or Thomas Castellanos proves to be an amazing freshman and enter his sophomore year in the Big 12 with some great momentum, or we have a stopgap quarterback for a year and we get a transfer. There's a lot of guys on the market right now. Spencer Rattler, the guy from Hawaii that just transferred. There's a lot of big names right now in the transfer portal for QBs, and UCF could maybe go get one of them if they feel that that's the best route for 1 year, or we enter with some momentum with some homegrown guys that are going to develop obviously Keene this year, next year, or Thomas next year. So we'll see what happens there. DG probably didn't have a lot of time left at UCF anyways, but it is a shame that he couldn't finish his career, not only in a UCF uniform, but at least with a conference championship or an NY6 game appearance. But it is what it is, and it's upsetting. But we look to the future now, and we look for Gus to get his guys and build around his team. And I think UCF will be very active in the transfer portal when it comes to a new QB. And I think we have a lot of promise there, and we can either get someone in or develop one of the guys that we have. UCF has been on a really nice roll with getting quarterbacks pretty much since Milton. We've had really good quarterbacks here, so I don't think that will end. But shame it had to end this way. Go Knights.